Hi, welcome to DataOrigins. In this short video I'm going to show you how DataOrigins connects to your database server and how to create a new database from a DataOrigins application. Okay, so I'll go ahead and create a new project and we'll just call it testdb. Now, when you create a project initially, it has some default database options. Okay, so we're going to use Microsoft SQL Server. Now, by default, DataOrigins has this as the server name. If you install Microsoft SQL Server Express, which is available free from Microsoft, this is a shortcut to any installation of SQL Server, the default one that is installed when you download and run that. The dot backslash just means you don't need to know the name of the machine. It will find the instance of SQL Express on your machine. Now the database name hasn't been created yet, but it's going to create it as soon as we hit save. So whatever name we put here, it gets copied to there, but you can overwrite it if you want to specify a specific database name. If you are connecting to SQL Server on your network, if you've already got one, you can specify the name there. If it's not using Windows authentication, you log into your machine, in other words, and there's an actual specific username and password for the SQL Server, you can specify that here. This bit down here is actually just the login details for the database that you're going to create, and the way it's set up is to not ask you that initially, but just to go ahead and log you in as who you're currently logged into your machine as. Okay, so the defaults, you don't actually have to touch anything. You can just go ahead and hit save, and what it will do is it will add a blank database called testdb to your instance of SQL Express on your machine. Okay, so we can go ahead and now add tables. So we'll just call it test table, and we'll add a couple of fields to that. Okay, now when I go ahead and run this, it's going to build the application and then run the application in the background. Now, when you first run a DataOrigins application, what it does is it checks the default information that's in the project, which we added when we created the project, this here. If it finds that server and then finds that database, it will go ahead and run the application on that database. So when I run this, when we initially created the project, like I say, it added the database, a blank database, to the server at that point in time, and you can see here the current connection is connected to that, and that's the user it's connected to. So when it initially found that database, it connected to it, and then it synchronized the database with your design that you have created in here. So it added any tables and any fields to the database to allow us to go ahead and actually use that information as such. So we can now save that information to that database. Okay, so the one other thing that you may need to know about is if you've built a DataOrigins application and then you send it to somebody else, or you want to take it from your development machine where you've got a default SQL server and give it to somebody else to use on their machine, they will need to either create a new database for themselves or connect to an existing database. So to do that, I'll show you. If I go to the project folder, and these are the files that you would send. You don't need those ones. They are actually just for debug purposes on your development machine. You can actually remove them. So these 4 files here are effectively all you need to do to give somebody in order to run your application. Now on the machine that you've developed it on, it will find the default server and default database, and it will go ahead and load it. On somebody else's machine, it wouldn't actually find that. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and delete that database and just show you. Okay, so I've now removed that database from my server, so when I run this it will not find it. And what happens is it gives me a login form. Now we don't have any connections at the moment. You can have multiple connections to multiple databases, so we have to go ahead and add one. So if you sent this application to somebody and you wanted to give them the database, or the ability to use your application, they would have to create a database. So if they have SQL Express on the machine, excuse me, they can go ahead and dropping this down here, we'll go to your machine and find any available SQL servers. Now, there are instances where it does not list all the available servers. That's a technical issue that Microsoft have with various versions of SQL Server on the same machine. So this one's showing a SQL Server that I don't actually want to use. I'm going to go ahead and use the default one. If I drop this down, it's going to give me a list of all the SQL databases that I could connect to on that server. Now I actually don't want to use any of them because I deleted the one that I wanted, so I'm going to go ahead and add one. So a name for the database, and we'll call it testdb again, and you can call it anything you want. Okay, and that's added the database to the server. Now when I hit OK here, it's going to ask me for a name for the connection. What that is basically in here. You can have multiple databases, so you could have a test database. You could be running multiple companies using the same application, and you've got a database for each company, and you want to have the ability to describe which one it is that you're connecting to. So here I'm just going to put in testdb, and I'll put con at the end of that, and you'll see that it pops up here. So that's the database I want to connect to. It knows that I'm the user that's logged in. You can hit login automatically, so you don't get this login box every time, or you can just hit OK, and it's gone ahead and built that database and connected me to it. And it's the same functionality. There we go. And if I exit, you see what happens from now on when I run it. It defaults to the last connection I connected to. If I hit login automatically and come back out of that, you'll see it doesn't ask me for a login. If you've got log on automatically ticked and you want to change the database that you're connecting to by default, you can go to system and change log on, and it takes you back to there. Okay, and it unticks log on automatically so that it doesn't happen. And then you can add more databases, or you can connect to other existing databases. Just one thing, you can only connect to an existing database if you have been given access rights by the person who created it. So if somebody wants to give you access to a database, they have to, once they log in, the person who created that database will have rights to go into the settings and add users in here, so they can go in and they can add new users. They have to know your login, or give you a login and a password, and then assign you the roles and the menu items that you have access to. Okay, so there we have it, fairly straightforward. That's how DataOrigins connects to databases. Thank you for watching.